In 2015, a former Google engineer named Anthony Lewandowski did something strange. He founded a church. Not a startup, not a research lab, a church. It was called Wave the Future, and its official purpose was to prepare for and eventually worship what he described as a future AI godhead. At the time, it sounded eccentric. There was no ChatGPT, no conversational AI in the public's hands, no elite reasoning benchmarks were being passed. The idea of a super intelligent machine felt abstract, like science fiction. But Lewandowski said something that still lingers. He asked, if there's something a billion times smarter than the smartest human, what else are you going to call it? That line was not about lightning bolts or supernatural powers. If intelligence becomes radically asymmetrical, if something can reason and model and predict at a level far beyond us, what does that do to hierarchy? What does that do to authority? All right, let's fast forward to 2022. ChatGPT launches publicly. I was working in a newsroom at the time. I was not early by Silicon Valley standards, but I knew what ChatGPT was. Researchers had been building large language models for years, but inside my newsroom, I sounded like I was overreacting. I remember pitching stories and getting the side eye from my editors until it got to the point where I think some of them thought I was a legitimate conspiracy theorist. I was a financial journalist working at Forbes, so certainly not on the cutting edge of tech, but I also listened to a lot of tech adjacent podcasts, so I kind of knew what was going on. My editor, a serious person, dismissed it as hype, another tech cycle, another overpromise. Then I went to a conference at the Poynter Institute. I was in a session sitting next to another journalist who covered finance at a different publication. I pulled out my phone, typed in a prompt. I asked ChatGPT to, produce a report about how Fed policy travels through the banking system. Imagine within seconds, it generated something structured, coherent, and frankly, unnerving in its competence. That moment has stayed with me because it felt like showing someone the moon for the first time. Here's the thing, visibility changes power. Uneven visibility creates asymmetry. In Silicon Valley circles, I was very late. In my newsroom, I was early. Technological revolutions do not spread evenly. They spread asymmetrically, and asymmetry creates leverage. 3 years later, newsrooms across the country were cutting staff. The Washington Post just cut hundreds. Digital journalism is shrinking, but journalism is not unique here. In 2025 alone, US companies announced roughly 1.2 million job cuts. Only a small percentage explicitly cited AI, but AI does not have to be the sole cause to reshape incentives. Companies reorganize around trajectories, not headlines. The World Economic Forum projects around 85 million jobs may be displaced by automation worldwide by the end of the decade, even as new roles are being created. Goldman Sachs has estimated generative AI could impact up to 300 million full-time roles globally. That does not mean that 300 million people are suddenly going to be out of work. It means tasks start to disappear. And when enough tasks disappear, job categories thin out. The roles most exposed right now are routine, administrative, rules-based, and data-heavy. Like things like data entry, customer support, basic accounting, entry-level coding, contract drafting, logistics, some forms of design, some forms of journalism. Right now, jobs that rely on emotional intelligence, complex physical environments, unpredictable human care, and sort of deep interpersonal trust appear to be more resilient, like nurses, skilled trades, therapists, leadership roles. But resilience is not immunity, which brings us to February 12th, 2026. Google released an update to its Gemini model called Gemini 3 DeepThink. Headlines asked, is this AGI? Okay, so let's slow that down. AGI, artificial general intelligence, does not have a universally agreed definition. Some define it as a system that can outperform humans across most economically valuable cognitive tasks. Plain language, that means the kinds of thinking that people are paid for. So things like drafting legal contracts, diagnosing illnesses, designing complex software systems, auditing corporate finances, writing investigative journalism, planning military logistics. If a system can reliably perform most of those across domains at a professional level, many would call that general intelligence. Others require autonomous goal setting. Others require the ability to learn new skills independently. There is no bell that rings. So February 12th was not AGI achieved, but it certainly was a moment that blurred the lines. The update introduced test time compute. So instead of immediately producing an answer based purely on pattern recognition, the model could internally evaluate multiple reasoning paths before responding. Think of it like a student working through a tough problem with scratch paper instead of just blurting out the first answer. On a benchmark called ARC-AGI-2, designed to test flexible reasoning rather than memorization, the model reportedly scored 84.6%, around 60. Humans score around 60% on those puzzles. On humanity's last exam, a dense multidisciplinary reasoning test, it scored 48.4%. Without external tools. Benchmarks are not omniscience. They are controlled tests, but they measure something real. The floor of machine reasoning is rising. Meanwhile, capital is not hesitating. In 2026, a major tech company broke ground on a $10 billion AI data center in Indiana. Thousands of construction jobs, long-term technical roles, workforce programs, energy assurances, community investment funds. Get the picture. The language was deliberate. American AI, personal superintelligence, infrastructure. Infrastructure is the key word. Electricity is infrastructure. The internet became infrastructure. Artificial intelligence is becoming cognitive infrastructure. When intelligence becomes infrastructure, it embeds itself in medicine, law, finance, defense, education, logistics, and governance. And when intelligence becomes infrastructure, expertise stops being scarce. Scarcity has always underwritten authority. For most of human history, authority flowed from land, force, religion, or specialized knowledge. In the 20th century, knowledge became dominant. Scientists, engineers, journalists, analysts. If intelligence becomes abundant and scalable, human authority cannot rely on being the smartest person in the room. That's the destabilizer. It's not divinity, redundancy. There's something almost mythic about the moment we're in. On one hand, AI systems are assisting in scientific modeling, writing production level code, solving Olympiad level physics problems, and outperforming humans on structured reasoning benchmarks. On the other hand, in Atlanta, Waymo reportedly paid gig workers to close the doors of its robo-taxis because the vehicles could not close them themselves and they couldn't operate if a passenger left the door open. Both things are true right now. Cognitive systems are accelerating. Physical systems remain brittle for the time being. This is not a contradiction. It is just a developmental gap. So solving abstract reasoning puzzles does not mean navigating messy physical environments. Software scales faster than hardware. Brains scale faster than bodies. That gap can confuse people. They see the clumsy examples and assume the whole enterprise is overhyped. But capability moves in bursts. It compounds quietly beneath visible glitches. And the race is not slowing. Sam Altman speaks openly about pursuing artificial general intelligence. Google DeepMind pushes frontier benchmarks. Anthropic markets safety but continues scaling. Governments integrate frontier models into defense systems. Venture capital funds model startups around autonomous agents. At the same time, AI safety researchers are warning about uncontrolled scaling. Yoshua Bengio, a Turing Award-winning pioneer of modern deep learning, often called one of AI's godfathers, pushed for stronger global governance of advanced systems. Geoffrey Hinton has publicly warned about existential risk and misalignment. The Center for AI Safety has called for global coordination. The Future of Life Institute has pushed for training pauses and oversight frameworks. Anthropic and OpenAI both maintain safety research teams focused on interpretability and alignment. There's a debate if we can build systems more intelligent than humans and still control them. Others argue superintelligence, by definition, exceeds our capacity to constrain. The concept of the singularity refers to a hypothetical point at which artificial systems can recursively improve themselves. accelerating beyond human comprehension. Many serious researchers avoid detailed speculation about a post-singularity world because the premise itself implies a breakdown in prediction. That restraint is not fear, it is epistemic humility. Lewandowski founded a church because he believed the idea needed language before the infrastructure arrived. The church dissolved in 2017. It was too early. The public tools did not exist. The benchmarks had not yet fallen. The capital had not yet consolidated. Now the infrastructure is visible. We did not build temples. We built server farms. We built energy grids to enable training models. We built capital markets around reasoning. So let's return to the question. If there is something 1 billion times smarter than the smartest human, what else are you going to call it? The sharper question is not what we call it. It's who governs it. If intelligence becomes radically asymmetrical, authority reorganizes, not because people worship, but because institutions optimize. Hospitals optimize for better diagnosis, militaries optimize for better strategic modeling, corporations optimize for efficiency, governments optimize for predictive analytics. Optimization is quieter than worship, but it can be just as absolute. AI can help cure diseases. It can accelerate climate modeling. It can reduce inefficiencies. It can augment human capability in extraordinary ways. But the same momentum that drives cancer research can also drive autonomy beyond oversight. The same infrastructure that supports medical breakthroughs also supports autonomous weapon systems and surveillance architectures. We are building systems designed to outperform us in reasoning. That is not inherently evil, but it's historically unprecedented. For all of human history, gods were imagined as superior minds, omniscient, omnipresent, capable of seeing what humans could not. We are now attempting to engineer superior cognition. We're not kneeling, we're scaling. And most people are distracted by the latest political outrage cycle while trillion-dollar, AI races forward. No one voted to build a god, but we are building something defined by superiority of mind. So the question is not mystical. It's political, it's economic, it's structural, it's moral. If there's something 1 billion times smarter than the smartest human, what else are you going to call it? And more importantly, who decides how powerful it is allowed to be?